We got a message from Ronnie Moas this morning, and he's steaming mad. Not at you or me or Travis, but at PayPal. So we thought we'd get him on to share what's going on, as well as catch up on his take on the current state of crypto. Looks like Ronnie is quickly becoming a Bad Crypto Correspondent, but we may just give him the title, His Supreme Royal Prognosticator of all things financial. We also do a quick catch-up with Brian Tan of Paycent. You might remember them from an ICO Spotlight show back in October of last year. So, you ready to do this? We hope so, because it's the Look Out, Ronnie's Mad, episode number 80 of the Bad Crypto Podcast.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, ignition.
Who's bad?
And welcome, friends, to the Bad Crypto Podcast, the show for the crypto curious, the crypto serious, and in the case of Ronnie Moas,
I'm a little crypto furious.
Yes, Ronnie Moas is crypto furious at PayPal and fiat currency.
he wanted to talk about this, and it does, some of you will, know about some PayPal issues already. This is what he's talking about today is not something new, but it does point to the need for decentralization. So it's going to be interesting to talk to him about that. Over 2.5 million downloads of this show, and that's because once you go bad, you never go back. You stay bad.
You're never sad. You're never sad if you go bad.
You're always glad.
You're glad.
And you're not a hanging Chad.
Yes, all of those things. And then not only do we talk to Ronnie Moas, but we also have it's sort of a recap of a company we had on an ICO Spotlight back in October, Paycent. And so this is pretty interesting how they're launching a dual wallet that's going to be crypto plus fiat currency, but multiple different types of cryptos you're going to be able to utilize your credit card, your debit card with. So we'll revisit with them as well.
It's an ICO update, if you will. Will you? A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, well, it wasn't that long ago, but it was 2017, and it was mid-October, and we had an ICO Spotlight show that featured a new cryptocurrency that was launching out of Asia called Paycent. You might remember that we visited with Brian Tan, the CEO of Paycent, and spoke about their vision for the future of crypto. And we're doing a little catch up here. We're pleased to welcome Brian back to the Bad Crypto Podcast. How you doing, Brian?
Fine, thanks, Joel. Hello, Travis.
Hello, Brian.
How are you guys?
Doing awesome.
So how about just a quick catch up to give us the short version of where Paycent has come in the 3 months since we've spoken?
Beautiful. So a quick update is basically that Paycent has actually did a game changer in the sense that we actually changed our ICO into 8 phases. What we wanted to show was basically to the community that we would actually accomplish our milestones before moving out and taking on more crypto investors. So in our phase 1, what we did was we actually put milestones of a dual currency, a dual wallet with a debit card, and of course some banking licenses. So that's going to come up in sometime in the first week of March.
So you're now, I go to paycent.com and you're pre-registering people for the debit card. Is that correct?
Absolutely, Travis. We are actually taking on pre-registrations right now. Why is that so? Because basically we still do need to do a bit of KYC on the cards that come on board or the people that come on board.
Okay, but I'm Joel.
Yeah, and I'm Travis. And we confused everyone. I was going to let that go, Joel. I was going to let that go and then make it later.
I won't. I can't. I'll lose my identity if I don't know who I am.
Already. They go, wow, I didn't know your face went with that face and that voice. Weird.
They might think that Brian is you.
Maybe so. This is weird. Brian. So Paycent is our new project we launched, and the debit card Yeah. So let me ask you about this. So can anyone register for this debit card? Because I know that people all around the world, they want to know. Some of them maybe didn't get to be part of the ICO. Maybe they haven't listened to this episode, but is the debit card and the dual wallet system, how does that work and who is eligible for that?
Right. So we'll take one step. It's basically who's eligible. It's basically more or less worldwide. There are a few sanctioned countries, but I don't think they matter. It's North Korea, Sudan, Afghanistan. So a few of those countries, they're not eligible. As far as the dual wallet works, how it works is basically we tag debit card to the dual wallet so that basically at any one time, you can actually use your crypto or your fiat money to pay off the debit card.
Mm-hmm. Now, which currencies are going to be able to be utilized within the crypto wallet?
Right. So for the starters, of course, it's our own Percentos token will be there. Then, of course, the two big boys, we have the Bitcoin and the Ethereum that will be listed on the initial start. We plan to add more cryptocurrencies to the fold, but that's down the road.
Right. That's something that really makes crypto handy, having access to the debit card. I know, Joel, have you had that come in pretty handy for you with the one that you use?
Well, I like it and I've used it a couple times, but the bottom line is I don't want to spend my Bitcoin. We talked about this before. I don't want to buy a pizza and then, 2 years from now go, man, I could have made a car payment instead.
So what we plan to do, as you rightly mentioned, is basically because you don't want to spend your Bitcoin, we're going to plan to list the other altcoins. And we feel that basically there'll be a market for people that want to spend the other altcoins.
Yeah, I would be more comfortable spending some of my other altcoins. And then, of course, you have your own token, right, with the PYN token.
Correct.
Which,
the Percentos, which we hope people won't spend.
So that'll work, basically the same way within the wallet. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely right.
Excellent. And you mentioned that you've split up the ICO into milestones. And so when does the next ICO open up?
The next ICO is planned for May. What we do is basically once we will only go for the next phase or on the ICO when we accomplish our milestones stated in the white paper, which is technically the two main milestones are the banking licenses and, of course, the dual wallet with the debit card. So we should be good to go by the first week or middle of March for those two. So we'll be ready for our ICO in May. Hopefully we get some people join in.
Excellent. Well, we will see how people respond to the debit card and the wallet app as they come out. You guys can go to paycent.com, Paycent, just like it sounds, and check it out. And great catching up with you, Brian. Thanks for visiting with us.
Thanks. And may the force be with you guys.
Thank you. Great stuff. Good luck.
Bye. Thanks.
And we're pleased to welcome back a friend of the show. And it's been 10 whole episodes since he was with us. And his name is Ronnie Moas. You guys know him, Standpoint Research, one of the top analysts in the world when it comes to calling it for the stock markets and the crypto markets. And Ronnie was on the Coinsbank blockchain cruise with Mr. Travis Wright. And Travis has told us a little bit about it. And Ronnie's also got his buttons have been pushed, and we're going to talk a little bit about what's happened to him. Anyway, welcome back to Bad Crypto, Ronnie. How you doing?
Thank you for having me.
Always. Let's just go ahead and get the angst out of the way, because you messaged me about something that happened to you that's got you pretty upset, and it had something to do with PayPal.
Yes, this is probably one of the most upsetting things that has ever happened to me in my life. But what PayPal did to me, I just can't believe they could get away with this.
They do it all the time.
I believe that my situation was 10 times worse than anything that I've read about online in doing my research the last 24 hours. I basically was in the middle of my vacation, and every day I would have like $20,000 come into my account, I would have like $20,000, $30,000 come into my account every day, and I would transfer it to my bank account. A few days went by, and I didn't have time to do the transfers, right? So $100,000 accumulated in my account in like 3 days, and I tried to transfer the money, and it was frozen, and I couldn't believe it. And then I called them from Asia, and they told me that they are freezing my money as a reserve against possible refund requests. And I hit the roof because they've been with me for 18 months. And I had signed up more than 1,000 people to my service and got one refund request. So how are they going to lock up $100,000 of my money, right? So I was on the phone with someone there for 2 hours, and he says, I'm going to try to get this down to $50,000 for you. This was 3 weeks ago. It's now $225,000, and I still haven't gotten a response from them. $225,000. And they are collecting interest on this money. If you want to hold a little bit of money in a reserve account, just in case they get refund requests, which they are on the hook for, that's okay. But why are you collecting interest on my money? Can you imagine if they would have done this to me 6 months ago, and that money is money that I may have put into Bitcoin? Do you know how steaming mad I would be right now? That basically would have been a $1 million hit that I was taking.
That's true.
There's no way on earth this can be legal. They probably have some fine print in their contracts that say they can do it like this to people, but this is a different circumstance. They knew who I was. They vetted me. They stuck a microscope up my ass. Trust me. They looked into my background. Every single piece of documentation that they needed from me, I gave them. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, 17 months into an 18-month relationship, they freeze $200,000 of my money. And I said, this stinks like a fish. And sure enough, in 2 minutes online, I did a Google search. What does PayPal do with the money that they freeze? And sure enough, they're collecting interest on it.
Not cool.
That's not cool. That could feed 4,500 children for a whole year.
Yeah, well, this is not a joking matter. Every time I go to my PayPal account, I feel like I'm getting punched in the stomach. Because they don't even give you time to look for another alternative service provider, right? It's taking me a few weeks because I have to update my website. I have to make sure that it's going to be integrated properly and that I'm not going to lose any payments while I'm in transition. And during that time, if I had $500,000 come into my account and they took half of that money and froze it. And until this happens to you, you have no idea what it feels like. It feels like getting raped and robbed. And it's just the most horrible feeling you could ever imagine.
Yeah, that happened to my business back in 2004, I believe. It was horrible. Yeah, it's definitely frustrating when PayPal just has the power to do that. But you know what? Banks have the power to freeze your bank accounts as well. And, the financial system in the old guard, they have a way of sticking it to whoever they decide to stick it to, really. Kind of shows you why crypto is a good thing moving forward, right, Ronnie?
Exactly, because everybody, a lot of people are just going to dismiss this segment and not take it seriously, but they need to think about how they would feel if they were in my shoes right now. Not only did PayPal take 3.5% of the $1 million that came into my account in the last 90 days alone, but they also froze hundreds of thousands of dollars of my money. They are collecting interest on that, not me. And I've also been prevented from investing that money for myself. So there's an opportunity cost on top of these ridiculous fees that they're charging. They have a basic, more or less a monopoly here, and they're getting away with murder. And people should be furious about this, in my opinion.
It's not the first time that it's happened. I've heard about this happening to others before, but it's been a while, and it's the first time I know that it's happened to you. So I know it's really frustrating. Maybe you just go show up on their door, Ronnie, and say, hey, give me my money.
I went on a tirade already this morning on Twitter. I'm already speaking to a lawyer, and I am sending out a detailed transcript to more than 1,000 people in the media about my experience. You want to hold some money on reserve in a fund in case they get hit with refund requests, that's fine. But they know I've only had one refund request in the last year from 1,500 subscribers. So how are they coming off locking up $225,000 of my money? That would be like 300 or 400 refund requests when I only got one in 18 months. So I realized right away that this is a scam, and they are trying to get you to believe that they're just protecting themselves, when in fact this is a scam to collect interest on your money.
Well, on a lighter note, not to diminish what's happening at all, because I do hope you get it resolved soon. You were on the blockchain cruise with Mr. Travis Wright, and I understand you boys had a good time.
Yes, and Travis did not pay me to say this, but I heard dozens of speakers on the cruise, and he was in a different league. I think a lot of the speakers felt uncomfortable following him on stage. That's how good he was. And, there's a reason why he's in such demand to speak at these types of conferences, because he does steal the show to a certain extent.
Oh, thank you, good sir. Appreciate that. That's too nice of you.
I like to give credit when credit is due, and it was not possible to ignore the amount of time and effort that it takes you to pull off that presentation that you did.
Travis is a fantastic speaker, and I can vouch for following him, because sometimes we were in Davos and he was walking and I was behind him, and he was a tough act to follow. So,
But it was nice. I get to be the lead blocker to walk through the people, so it's an easier road for you.
And he also has an incredible stage presence and personality that doesn't come across, on a podcast. Now, everywhere that I'm asked to speak, it's almost like a package deal. I want them to bring Travis along as well. And I've already contacted Emerge Americas, which is a massive conference at the Miami Beach Convention Center in April. And I'm trying to get both of you a spot there as well. I will be headlining on that one. And it's walking distance from where I live.
Party at Ronnie's house. This will be fun.
Right.
Well, let's take a look at the market here, Ronnie, and just kind of get the lay of the land of where you think things are, because ever since the big rise towards the end of 2017, and then, I don't want to call it a crash, but the significant pullback that happened in January of 2018, things are kind of sideways right now. What's your beat on all this?
I think, two things. First of all, I don't know whether Travis heard and or spoke to the same people I did on the cruise. We were there 4 days, and I'm sure he spoke with dozens of people just as I did. And the consensus was that most of the names outside the top 10 or top 20 are scams. And people are going to get burned if they try to pick winners from all of those weeds down there. The second part of my answer to you is that I noticed that Bitcoin has been trading in a range between $10,000 and $12,000 the last few weeks, right? And what that means to me is that there is a really big buyer in the 9,000 to 10,000 range, which is supporting Bitcoin on the downside. But there's also some big sellers in that 11,800 to 12,500 range, which is preventing us on the upside from breaking out. And I'm curious to see whether that resistance or support level that we're seeing in this trading band which is going to break first. And I'm not a technician, but this is hard not to notice. The volatility has just really come down a lot since December. And I'm just curious to see which way this breaks.
All right. Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. It seems that, the prices, they go up one day, they go down about the same amount the next day. So this has been it seems it's been very balanced. There's been a few big drops, but I mean, it looks like we're a lot of those altcoins seem to be sitting in a waiting pattern. Just sort of, some of them will pop up, and then like the next day they'll pop back down to where they were. There's not seeing any real movement. I noticed that the only crypto that really had a breakout month in January was Neo. And everyone else just sort of stayed pat. So do you expect, what are your thoughts for moving forward in February? I know you don't have a crystal ball, but what are some of the things that you think might be happening?
Yeah. Where is Neo now? Number 9?
Not sure exactly where they are, but I know they're sitting at around 10 billion in market cap.
Yeah, I think they may have cracked into the top 10 with that last move. I think I noticed that as well. I just, my target for Bitcoin is $28,000 by the end of the year. And what I am going to need in order for that to happen is news from Wall Street. We need someone to come out with a fund where the average Joe or the average Travis can just hit a button on Fidelity or E-Trade or Scottrade and transfer 5 or 10% of their money into crypto without having to worry about Coinbase and Nano Ledger and Trezor devices and accounts being hacked and exchanges being hacked and securing their money. It's very, very complicated and confusing to the average person. And when an ETF comes out on Wall Street that allows the average person to just hit one button, like they're buying an S&P index share, that is when the floodgates can open here. It seems now that there's just so many headlines coming out on a daily basis from dozens of countries around the world that people are just, I think there's a little bit of fatigue. You know, there was a lot of excitement the last few months of 2017. And now I think, you know, people are just taking a breather and they're not going to react to a headline on CoinDesk unless it's a really big one. And I think that's what's going to happen. There's going to be a big headline in the next few weeks or the next few months, and that is what is going to cause Bitcoin and some of the other names to take a big move from where we are right now in one direction or the other.
It feels like rather than the floodgates opening, it's kind of been like the FUD-gates, you know, have been opening up. There's so much fear and uncertainty and doubt. But I want to clarify something you said because I want to make sure we're talking using the same definitions. You said anything outside of the top 10 coins you would classify as scams. Does that mean you see them as deliberate money grabs, or do you think that some of them just aren't going to work in the long term?
No, I said most people on the cruise, myself included, feels that outside the top, what I said word for word earlier was outside the top 10 or 20 names, depending on who you ask. Some people will not look out at anything outside the top 20. Others will not look at anything outside the top 10. So, you know, the problem in this industry is that you only need $100,000 to pull off a scam operation. You need $25,000 for the website, $25,000 for a white paper. You pay a professor $25,000 under the table to sign off on the white paper, and you need someone that can lie to the public and speak on behalf of the company and do their pitch. And then you turn the switch on and you put millions of dollars into your pocket the next day. It happens all the time in the stock market, especially in the biotech space, where every single company tells you that they have a cure for cancer. They just need a few $100 million from you. And like John McAfee said a few weeks ago, the most impressive white papers that he has seen are usually the biggest scam operations. And it's very hard when you're looking at a situation where 9 times out of 10, you're going to get burned. I don't know anybody that can pick that one flower out of the weeds here, unless you spend several months on each name that you're going into. It's a problem. I think Travis may have seen Jack Tater speak on the cruise. He's a fantastic speaker. Mm-hmm. You saw him, right, Travis?
I did see him, and yes, and actually right now I'm listening to his book Crypto Assets, which so far is phenomenal. Yeah.
He's a fantastic guy, and by the way, both of us went to the State University of New York at Stony Brook, so I do have something in common with Jack. And what he was saying, and it's very important for people to understand this, a lot of these names are going up on pure speculation, the same way Amazon did 15 years ago. And what's going to happen is that sooner or later, it could take a few months or a year or 18 months or 2 years. People are going to say, okay, this ran up on speculation. Now, has the utility been proven? And if they prove that there is a utility value to justify the speculative stock price, the coin price, then it'll stay there or maybe even go higher, as was the case in Amazon the last few years. But if people say, wait a minute, this thing went up to $2 or $3 billion and there's no utility, it's going to crash. And I think a lot of these names will not be able to justify their current valuations in the next few years. And Jack said, and other people said at the conference, and I'm only quoting the highly regarded speakers from the group. What he said is that you could even if you're a legitimate name in the top 50 right now, you probably won't be there a year or two from now because someone's going to come along and improve on what you brought to the table by tweaking a few things. Just like people are trying to do with Bitcoin right now, come up with something a little bit faster and a little bit cheaper. So if you have something in the top 20 or the top 40 right now, there are people that are, looking into those names very closely and saying, okay, this looks like a really good business model. What if we improve on these little deficiencies that we see here? Then that renders the first name obsolete. That's technology.
Yeah. And then, one of the things is interesting. If you look at last year's top 10, there are a few of them that aren't in the top 10 now. There are different coins that are evolving over time. I look at it like, all right, there's 50 to 100 industries that are going to totally be disrupted by blockchain. I look to try to find the leaders in those particular spaces. But then if I actually do analysis on what I particularly invest in, I invest in the blockchains, the platforms themselves, not so much what's being built on other people's platforms, because if you own the highway, then you have a greater chance of owning, something that has more value. That's been my sort of look into it. And I didn't even plan it that way. I was just sort of looking at all the coins that I have invested in personally. And it seems that the blockchain ones are the ones that, have more value to me, at least now. And as more companies are being built on, when you have, I don't know how many hundreds of companies are being built on Ethereum right now. Obviously, Ethereum is a very valuable thing. And as more companies get built on tools like EOS and get built on things like Dragon Chain and get built on our chain and some of these other upcoming blockchains, those will gain intrinsic value. That's my presumption at this point anyway. What do you think about that?
Well, my concern is that I have 20 years experience in the stock market, and people don't realize how many lessons I learned in the stock market that are translating over into the crypto game. So I have an advantage over people that are coming into crypto right now that were never in the stock market. And I'm seeing a lot of people who are extremely greedy. Where I came from, you promised people 15% a year. They were very happy. Now I tell people you can expect 100 or 200% a year, and they're disappointed. They want me to give them, these penny names that'll jump by 100% in a week. I saw your presentation, and it was I like that point that you made where you're looking for the leader in logistics and the leader in the casinos and the leader in the banks and a leader in the apparel companies. And then you may go to the second and third strongest names in each of those industries. And then you'll have a nice diversified portfolio of a few dozen names. And that is a very good strategy. The question is, how do you identify those names today and how do you value them? A lot of these names are very impressive, but again, coming from the stock market, if you have a $10 billion valuation, you're generating $500 million in profit for me every year. These companies aren't generating a dime in profit. So the $1 million question is how are these companies being valued? And there are very few people that have been able to give you an answer for that. And that is where the concern is, and that is where my fears come with regarding to a possible bubble in a lot of these names. The only name I can really pin a valuation on is Bitcoin.
Interesting. I want to ask you one final question before we bump out of here. So there's been a lot of talk about the SEC and regulations and more of these ICOs, particularly ones that are coming out of the United States. They have these regulations on them now that you must be an accredited investor. And if you are an accredited investor with over $500,000 or $1 million, then you can invest. Does it look to you like over time that ICOs will only be available to the super rich again, and then the smaller, investors are going to be sort of left out in the cold down the road?
I don't know. I would not want to be in the place of regulators right now. Even until this day, they're having trouble regulating the names that are in the stock market. So you're basically talking about doubling the number of names that they will be responsible for regulating, right? And I don't know how they're going to do that. And I am concerned because there are a lot of criminals and crooks and scam artists right now. It could be 80%, 70%, 60%, which is a lot higher than we had in the stock market 20 years ago when you had the dot-com bubble. It's concerning. And not only is it, and in the stock market, it was easy because it was mainly American companies that you were trying to regulate. Here you were trying to regulate names that are based in dozens of countries spread out across several different continents. And I just don't know how you can regulate something like this. I think it's going to be a buyer beware warning, and and you're on your own. And if you try to get greedy, pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. And that's why I'm telling people to just flight to quality. Just focus on the names that are in the top 10, top 20, maybe even the top 40, and don't go into the weeds because you're going to get burned more often than not. And you could get wiped out if you try to play that game. As far as regulation goes, the last important point that I like to make when people ask me this question is I'm not worried about regulations coming from any one country. In the case of Bitcoin, for example, you only have a few million coins that are available for sale at any given time. If the demand from one particular country is eliminated because of regulation, there's 192 other countries around the world that can pick up that slack, okay? So the only way regulation could really be an issue here is if you get a joint statement on the same day from Russia, China, and South Korea that they're cracking down. That would, hurt the market and cause a collapse. But if it's a headline from any one country, one day China will crack down, but then Switzerland will come out with an announcement that's the exact opposite of what came from China, or vice versa. Does that make sense?
It does indeed. Well, Ronnie, thanks again for checking in with us. We hope that the PayPal issue resolves itself soon.
Well, it'll be resolved. I'm switching to Stripe, and the money's mine, right? But it's very, very aggravating. They're basically getting away with murder, and no one is holding them accountable.
Standpointresearch.com is the site, and check out Ronnie's stuff there. And of course, foodforthepoor.org/MOAS if you wish to give and support. Thanks again, Ronnie. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.
And we're glad that Ronnie likes to visit the Republic of Bad Cryptopia. In fact, Travis, he just showed up in the Bad Crypto Mastermind this last week. I wasn't expecting it. I saw somebody had posted something and he commented. Did you approve him to the group? Because I
approve him. I don't remember approving him. However, how I do it a lot of times is I go through and view and see who didn't answer the questions on that. And then I just decline all of them if they haven't answered any questions. And then I'll look through the ones who answered questions, and then I just sort of look for answers. I'm not necessarily looking at people's names. So I could have easily have added him on a bulk approve all.
Yeah, well, he's with us now in the group, and he's very busy. He's doing a lot of traveling, so we don't have any expectations of him, needing to reply or post. But I think he is lurking, and he is fond of the Republic of Bad Cryptopia, partially because you guys have been so generous with Food for the Poor and have donated so much money to the cause that is near and dear to his heart. And we appreciate that.
And this is actually Ronnie Moas. This is not a bad Travis Fred Flintstone Ronnie Moas impersonation.
I think that Ronnie Moas is impersonating Travis Wright right there. I can't tell the difference between the two of you.
Very meta. It's very meta.
You know what else I'm discovering, as you are as well, because you spent more time with him face to face on the blockchain cruise. He's got a great sense of humor. It just needs to, he needs to get past the analyst stuff and take a breather, because, what he does is so intense, right? It takes such focus to look at all the analysis and determine where the markets are going. But when he loosens up, he's a funny guy.
He is a really funny guy, but it's very dry. And he sets up his joke like he's telling you a serious story, just only to pop in with like a dad joke. So, but he was not funny today. He was pretty upset at PayPal, and I cannot blame him. 200 large, that's quite a bit for PayPal to be sitting on and taking interest on, huh?
It is indeed. So, folks, be careful with your monies out there. Make wise decisions. We are not financial advisors. So anyway, always glad to have you guys here. Thanks for listening today. If you want to give us a shout, we're always happy to hear from you. The Bad Crypto Hotline is open 24/7. 708-885-9030 is the number. Operator is standing by. Give us a call. And if nothing else, tell us to stay bad.
Stay bad.
Stay bad.
Hey, you already said that 3 times, damn it. We don't need any more.
Who's bad?
The Bad Crypto Podcast is a production of Bad Crypto LLC. The content of the show, the videos, and the website is provided for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. It's not intended to be and does not constitute financial, investment, or trading advice of any kind. You shouldn't make any decisions as to finances, investing, trading, or anything else based on this information without undertaking independent due diligence and consultation with a professional financial advisor. Please understand that the trading of Bitcoins and alternative cryptocurrencies have potential risks involved. Anyone wishing to invest in any of the currencies or tokens mentioned on this podcast should first seek their own independent professional financial advisor.